What's up everyone, Darcblade here with another pre-Sunbreak build for Monster Hunter Rise. This time we're going to be taking a look at a pre-Sunbreak build for the Lance. Now first off, what is a pre-Sunbreak build? Well, it's basically an endgame Monster Hunter Rise build that we can take into the start of Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak to take on the early monsters at Master rank relatively comfortably. Okay, it's not a guaranteed chance of success, but it's giving you the best possible head start. Of course, as you farm Master rank more and more, you'll replace this gear pretty quickly, as Master rank armor in general is a lot stronger than high rank armor. Now when it comes to the Lance, unfortunately the Lance is a little bit of a, shall we say, underpowered weapon in Monster Hunter Rise, but it can still be useful, so long as you don't worry about completing quests at a lightning speed. The Lance is quite capable of taking hunts on safely, and that is what I'm going to demonstrate here with this general all-round build. It's a little bit of a jack of all trades build, designed to take on monsters comfortably with the Lance. So for this build you need the Kaiser Crown, the Valk Mail S, the Valstrax Braces, Anjanath Coil S and the Ingot Greaves S. As for your Petalace, that's down to personal preference, and then when it comes to your Talisman, you want to use a Talisman either with as many tier 2 decoration slots as possible or as many points in guard as possible. When it comes to the weapon, I'm using the Tigrex Lance that has an attack boost rampage skill attached to it. This build does have positive affinity, so there's no point in taking Brutal Strike. So when it comes to the decorations, you've got a few to play around with. First of all, I've gone for my quality of life steadfast jewels for stun resistance. I've then gone for a critical jewel for crit boost, a shield jewel for a point in guard up, tenderizer jewels to max out weakness exploit, grinder jewels to max out speed sharpening, and then if you have any jewel sockets left, take brace jewels for points in flinch free, especially if you're playing in a group. Finally, when it comes to the jewels, if you don't have a talisman that has guard points on it and instead has multiple tier 2 decoration slots on it instead, or tier 3, then I'd advise using guard jewels to get points in the guard skill. So if you've done what I've done here, you have a build with 287 raw attack with no element. You also have white sharpness with this Tigrex Lance. You have affinity rating of 10%, although this can be 60% when you take into account weakness exploit, and you have a decent defense of 497 that is strong against fire, neutral against dragon, but slightly weak to the other elements, especially water. As for the switch skills, these are down to personal preference in all honesty, so choose whatever you prefer. So when it comes to the skills, first of all you have Critical Eye at level 5. Critical Eye is a skill that increases the base affinity of a build. You'll then have Attack Boost at level 4, increasing the raw attack of our build. You'll then have Critical Boost at level 3. Critical Boost is a skill that increases the damage of our critical hits, but only boosts the raw portion of a critical hit, not the elemental or ailment portion. But this is an elementalist build with fairly high raw attack, so this comes in useful. You'll then have Weakness Exploit at level 3. Weakness Exploit is a skill that increases our affinity whenever we're attacking monster weak points. So we can potentially have a bonus 50% affinity thanks to Weakness Exploit being at level 3. You'll then have Guard at level 3. Guard is a skill that reduces the knockback when we're blocking monster attacks, as well as the stamina used to block those said attacks. It would have been nice to have Guard higher for the Lance, so we could block pretty much every attack with minimal knockback, allowing us to continue our assaults, but at level 3 we get to block the majority of monster attacks quite comfortably. Only the hardest ones will knock us back a little bit. But regardless, Guard at level 3 definitely helps with our defense. You'll then have Stun Resistance at level 3, a quality of life skill that I personally love to use that prevents all stun effects on our hunter. You'll then have Speed Sharpening at level 3, which allows us to sharpen our weapon exceedingly quickly, so we can quickly get that white sharpness back. You'll then have Flinch Free at level 2, preventing minor knockbacks from monsters as well as allies. You'll then have Guard Up at level 1, allowing us to block unblockable attacks, although we will still take a little bit of damage from these unblockable attacks, as Guard Up is only at level 1. And then finally you'll have Dragonheart at level 1, a byproduct of the armor we're wearing, the Valstrax Braces. Whenever we are 50% health or lower, we'll contract Dragon Blight, but in doing so, our elemental resistances will be increased. So there we have it, that is the Lance build I would be taking into the start of Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. In a way, it is a little bit of a jack of all trades, having skills that cover DPS, defense and quality of life, which should be good for the start of Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. But every build out there has pros and cons. No build is perfect. When it comes to this general Lance build, its first pro is its DPS output. It's got decent DPS thanks to Critical Eye, Attack Boost, Crit Boost and Weakness Exploit. Now you have to remember, we are still using a Lance here, and the Lance unfortunately is on the lower end of the DPS scale, especially when compared to other weapons out there. but with this build you should still be able to take on monsters quite comfortably and bring them down relatively quickly. The other pro is that this build is quite defensive as well. It's not the most defensive build for the lance, but the lance is already quite defensive in of itself. The massive shield you have allows you to block most attacks, and you even have an inbuilt guard up so you can block unblockable attacks when you perform the power guard. But this build enhances that by giving us guard at least level 3, it could be higher depending on the talismans you have available to you, and it gives us a pointing guard up so we can block unblockable attacks with our normal guarding maneuvers. Which brings us on to the final pro, which is that this build can be used against pretty much any monster. As it is an elementalist build, it means that rarely do we have to take into account a monster's elemental or element resistances, meaning that this is going to be great for the start of Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. But of course there are cons to any build out there. The biggest con for this build is unfortunately we do burn through that white sharpness quite quickly, and although it is alleviated slightly with speed sharpening, it's still something you need to be mindful of. And the other con is unfortunately this build is sort of reliant on having a decent talisman to give you the extra points and the various skills you need. But overall I'm happy with this build. The lance could be considered a difficult weapon to use in Monster Hunter Rise, not because it's hard to play, but more because of how the weapon is tuned. But if you are a lance main, or you are a fan of the lance like myself, then I'd recommend this build, especially if you are taking it into the start of Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. But what are your thoughts? Please leave a comment down below, and until next time, I've been Darcblade, bringing you a pre-Sunbreak build for the lance in Monster Hunter Rise. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.